why were you interested in doing this? I mean, how did it work? They advertised for appointees? I mean, maybe I should have asked you that months ago.
I remember back that far.
Can you remember why you did then and why you feel like you want to do it now?
Well, I think being a lawyer, just having an interest in policing in general and justice issues, but also coming out of, the Laura Magana incidents and some other kind of well-publicized events in this community, the tree protesters, just various things over the years. It just was really interesting to me. It seemed like a chance to participate and maybe hopefully make the situation a little better.
I've worked in the criminal justice system almost nonstop, except from a couple of years, for 24 years now. I was a prosecutor, a city prosecutor early on in my practice, and then I moved to the DA's office, and I was there for many years, and then I became a judge 11 and a half years ago. And so as a judge, I rely on the fact that the witness testimony being credible, and you certainly expect that that professional witnesses are going to be credible. So the idea that there could be a few officers out there who are not acting professionally, who are not telling the truth, so forth, that really, really bothers me. And it mainly bothers me because, well, for one, it concerns me because of the power differential between officers and some citizens, and how that's just not right. But it also concerns me for the good officers out there. There are men and women out there in that uniform who are working really hard every day, who put their lives on the line in some circumstances, and doing the best they can for their communities. And to have some bad apples out there that are destroying their reputation and making their job more difficult and turning people against them because of the uniform they wear, I mean, that's terrible. That's really awful.
So how would you describe your role on the Civilian Review Board, what your contributions are and what you do?
Our role, as I see it, is to bring a civilian perspective to police oversight. We're not there to bring police perspective. We're not there to bring necessarily a lawyer's perspective or a doctor's perspective, or even necessarily the individual complainant's perspective. But we're supposed to look at it as citizens of Eugene. How do we view these situations? And we look over these cases. We review the tapes, review all the video, review all the interviews. We review the recommendations, the adjudication recommendations of the auditor and the police lieutenant and captain and chief and so forth. And we give our judgment. We give our best read on it.
Yeah, evaluations up in line with the police chiefs, because he has the final say. How is that looking as far as agreeability? Maybe that's the word.
Well, to be fair, I should say that the cases that we review tend to be the tough cases.
Right.
Okay? The cases that are easy judgments, that the auditor fully agrees with the chief, those aren't really the ones we see. We're going to see the ones where there's a dispute between the auditor and the chief. Without looking at the statistics, I would say that the definite majority of those cases we have agreed with the auditor and disagreed with the chief.
How would you describe the role of the police auditor? You've explained a little bit about the work that the Civilian Review Board does, and how exactly does that intersect and work with what your work? I mean, obviously she helps coordinate the complaints and processing it, but how would you like to describe her particular role?
Well, she'll do, once the internal affairs investigation is done, the auditor then does an independent review of both the investigation and the findings, and then makes his or her own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And those go to the police chief before he or she makes the final decision on the complaint.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's another set of eyes to look at the process, to look at how IA investigates complaints, and then the decisions that they come to. But like the CRB, and that the ordinance is set up that way, I mean, neither the auditor nor the CRB have any power to impose discipline on an officer or make the chief change his mind. I mean, the only thing, the only exception to that is in a community impact case where we can say that the investigation has to be reopened.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the result can be exactly the same. So I think, the auditor functions as another set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, I think, moved the complaint process. I mean, if somebody wants to make a complaint about the police, they can come here. They don't have to go into the police, headquarters and make a complaint to a sworn officer. So the auditor's office does have the power to classify complaints, which is also, can be an area where figures can be manipulated. And so I think having somebody outside the IA department do that is very important.
Bring me up to speed on this. The police auditor recently was advised that for any substantive issues she needed to check in with the city attorney, and also the city council is to play a role, but equal in the supervision of the police auditor is the civilian review board. Were you involved in this kind of switch where requiring her to check in with the city attorney for substantive issues? Because it seems like the charter does emphasize independence, and this, you have any comments on this? Or?
Yeah. I've got plenty. No, we were not asked for input by the council, and which was definitely a concern for me. And I am extremely concerned about those new restrictions that they placed on the auditor. I think they are an outright attack on the independence of the auditor. I don't know whether all the council members who voted in favor of those restrictions were fully cognizant of what they did.
Yeah.
Because you cannot have an independent auditor that is required to check in with council officers every time she makes a substantive decision. This office has to make substantive decisions, I would assume, a couple to several times a day.
So it slows it down the process?
Well, number one, it slows down the process. I mean, I'm sure there are days when she can't get a hold of council officers, so that means she can't make the decision. Number two, independent does not mean that you check in with the council and say, can I do this?
And is this not the same council who also represents the city in citizen lawsuits for police misconduct? Is there a concern here for a conflict of interest or something, if that's the right thing?
Well, it concerns me because this is the council that's the governing body of the city, which means the city's reputation is very important to them. They don't want embarrassments to the city, which sometimes lawsuits or misconduct by police can be embarrassing
and costly.
And costly. Sure, anytime you've got an issue of liability of the city and possibly paying out settlements, that affects the budget. The city council, it's in the council's interest to not have big deficits out of the budget. To me, yes, it's a definite conflict, and I think the council is concerned that they're supposed to be supervising the auditor along with the civilian review board. But it is possible to supervise without micromanaging, without being involved in day-to-day decisions.
Lay your head where my heart used to be. The earth above me, lay down on the green grass, remember when you loved me.
And if police officers are doing their job, the way they should be and reflecting the values of our community, they should want everything they do reviewed by us.